speaking of Coleman Hawkins, he didn't play. He posted on his Instagram story, I believe it was, a shot of an X-ray. People left to wonder, like, is that him saying it's done? I mean, they're not saying that on the TV broadcast. Jerome Tang certainly didn't say that in the post-game press conference, just said he's working really hard to get back, which, I mean, we can certainly corroborate that. That was one of the frustrating things that I saw early on when he got hurt. People saying, oh, he's just speculation that he just packed it in and was didn't want to risk any of his NBA prospects and just packing it in because his team's done. It's quite the opposite. The guy really wants to play, and he is busting his ass to try and play.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. John Kurtz, Derek Young with you today. No Coleman Beck, but that's okay. We're going to talk football and hoops as K-State beats Colorado, crawling to within one game of 500, heading into the last week of the regular season, and an explosive, quite literally, performance for K-State at the NFL Combine. So that is fun. That is some fun stuff to talk about. Shout out to Coach True, K-State's strength coach, is going to get a lot of love today. The show is always brought to you by our good friends at Holiday Distillery. Raise a glass of Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon or 360 Vodka, whichever you would prefer. Make sure that you get stocked up no matter where you are at. Seems like we're seeing this more and more all over the country, but go ask for it. Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon and 360 Vodka for watch parties, tailgating. Stock up for next year already. K-State baseball, if you're going to go out and tailgate, you can bring some along there as well. So we appreciate their support here on the show. All right, we'll start with basketball, DY. K-State beats Colorado 65-56. It was kind of a boring game. Ugly-ish. It was just blah. I don't know, more than ugly. It just felt kind of blah.
Yeah, not necessarily ugly. Kansas State. It was. I think it's because of the opponent, maybe the environment here towards the end of the season, with it not having necessarily any implications for your postseason. No Coleman Hawkins, no Moby Ike-Garuke. So it's because if you actually look at the numbers and you watch the game too, a pretty good energy about them. Kansas State was so much better at the free throw line than they have been in the past. They beat Colorado there, 16 and 19 from the free throw line. Impressive. Not a slow start, which we had been accustomed to seeing from Kansas State, where they basically, in a lot of league games this year, whether it be home or away, mostly away, they've basically spotted the opponent, 10 or 12 points, it feels like, often, and have to kind of rally back. You finally end that losing streak because just a weird year. I think I was looking at it. They won their first league game, I believe, against Cincinnati. Then they lost 6 in a row. Then they won 6 in a row. Then they lost 4 in a row. So maybe this will be some kind of winning streak that is fired up because it's been a year of streaks, even though it doesn't mean anything. But they took care of the ball. That's why it's hard to say it was a sloppy performance. I mean, Kansas State only had 8 turnovers total and beat Colorado in points off turnovers 20-5.
Yeah, didn't shoot it very well, 34%. That's what felt kind of ugly and like, hey, you should probably be pulling away a little bit more. And Colorado, I mean, speaking of ugly shooting performances, if they have an average day from 3, they were 4 for 23.
Right.
You're going to be in a little bit more of a dogfight there and kind of almost were toward the end of the game as they started to really make a charge when they did get hot. So I don't know. Colorado's been playing a little bit better lately. Obviously, they beat Baylor. They played Kansas pretty tough. They beat UCF recently. They have been better than the team that was just dreadful for the first half of the Big 12 schedule. So it's not. Look, it's fine. I mean, you play. Taj Manning played in this game. So, and when the outcome was still in doubt, Taj Manning played in this game. So to win that game right now without Coleman Hawkins, with Moby being a late scratch that was a little bit unexpected, you absolutely take it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. You say, well, if Colorado shoots or has an average day or I don't know, forget how you described it. My caveat would be they typically don't. So that's not like, oh, what if Colorado did this? Well, part of beating Colorado as well as everyone's beating Colorado this year is they don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, they're not a good team. Like, they're not, watching them is kind of like, like I did have to chuckle at, I forget the guy's name who's doing color, but when he was kind of like, he singled out one of their players.
Yep.
Let me go look at the roster here.
Jess Settles was the color commentator.
Okay, so I think it was Bangkok Doc.
Bangkok Doc, who is a nice young piece that could be.
Yeah, I mean, and he is, but I'm pretty sure caught the color guy saying that he had the most important offseason of anybody in the Big 12 upcoming, and I was like, okay, I mean, that feels a little bit strong. That's the most important offseason for an individual player in the Big 12. Maybe he is that good.
I think he's going to be really good. But I mean, there's a lot of Big 12 teams. There's 16 teams now. So
yeah,
those kinds of declarations are just hard to do in general because of that. Definitely, I think probably for Colorado, though. I think he's kind of like your cornerstone player moving forward, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was nice to see David Gasson get going. He had 21 points, 8 rebounds. I think he's one of the guys. I mean, look, the whole team is really hurt by Coleman Hawkins not being in there, but Coleman is so good at delivering really nice interior passes. He's drawing double teams all the time inside. I think that really helped David Gasson, who's so sly at being able to make a nice cut and slip into the open space and finish around the rim. So I felt good that they really had a lot going. Doug, I felt like was pretty locked into to finding David Gasson quite a bit throughout the game. 7 assists and only 2 turnovers for Doug. So like that, good to see, especially like, David Gasson was tweeting the other day, like, oh man, I only have 2 home games left, the little crying emoji. Like it means something to him, and he stuck around, and feel horrible for him the way that things have gone this year in the last couple of years. So I like seeing DNG in the game that he had.
Yeah, that was good. Ugo actually rebounded a little bit. So
something to be said for like Ugo. Ugo looked a little bit more like what you would have expected him to look like. I mean, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks. It was 28 minutes. That was a lot of Ugo.
Yeah. And lately, I would say you're getting what you want kind of out of Doug McDaniel. And he's a completely different player than he was at the first half of the year. So I'm not even saying that. But like the assist to turnover is exactly what you've been wanting. I think it was 7-3 in that game, or 7. Would you say 7-2? 2 turnovers, yeah, and 7 assists. The game before that, I think he had 9 assists and 2 turnovers. But I will say, and I don't know if it's like I wanted to say like the dog days of the basketball season, but I don't know if that should be affecting Doug McDaniel because he's already played 2 full basketball seasons, and this is his 3rd one, and he wasn't even playing a whole lot at the beginning of the year. So I'm not sure his legs should be shot. But boy, he is having a hard time putting the ball through the hoop right now. That's what I will say. Yeah. He went 4 of 17 against Colorado. He was 4 of 14 against UCF. He was 2 of 12 against Arizona State and 5 of 13 against BYU. That is a combined, 15 for 56, I think.
Yeah, he's generally not the most efficient player in the world anyway. I know this because
it was before this year. That's okay. That's cool.
Well, I see.
Didn't he shoot 38% from 3 at Michigan?
I was going to look up his career numbers because I just did this the other day in the Discord. We were having this discussion. I was being challenged by Harambe, and actually I kind of acquiesced at the end. I was like, hey man, fair enough. Because I was trying to make the point that, Doug was playing like an all Big 12 point guard there during the winning streak and borderline for sure. But then I went and looked up the numbers and the efficiency. I was getting pushback on like, man, he's really inefficient. And the efficiency numbers were basically right during that 6-game stretch were basically right on his career averages, which is 39% from the floor, 33% from 3. So now some of that obviously is influenced by this year, but if you're looking at his career averages, that's what it is right now. 39% from the floor, 33% from 3. His best year at Michigan, he was 41% from the floor and 37% from three, which like that. I mean, I would sign up for that next year right now. But he's kind of inefficient. I mean, he's kind of inefficient, and I appreciate the effort. I think you're getting so much more energy from him right now. I like all of that we're seeing. I think there's a ton of potential. This was all in a discussion, by the way, where the big picture point was, do you want him back next year? And my answer to that is like, of course.
Yeah.
And it's because of the potential he does have with his speed and athleticism. I think there is an ability to shoot the ball there, even though he's been under 30% from three this year at K-State. And if you have all of that already here under this roof, like just develop that. We've learned the lesson about like you can't be kicking guys to the curb. But yes, I will acknowledge his struggle right now is definitely efficiency, and he's going to have to figure something out. Whether it's getting the floater game better, mid range. Obviously, you're going to want the 3-point ball to fall at like a 5% higher clip next year. There's a lot to work on there, but you are at least getting the, kind of the price of entry is just the effort and how much he cares. And you can clearly see that is still there.
In the 3 games before Coleman got hurt, Doug was shooting 40% from the field, 46% from the field, 56% from the field. So he was actually shooting the ball well at that point. Coleman got hurt, 17%, 29%, 24%. Maybe they are not related, but interesting nonetheless.
Oh, I would bet that it is related. I mean, Coleman, I think, just helps from a spacing standpoint so much, and just getting the ball where it needs to go. Yeah, I think he's excellent at that. As much crap as he's taken from people throughout a lot of this season, I think he does a lot of things that are not really apparent to the eyes, to the casual fan when you're just watching. And I know, like, people don't want to go, well, whatever, he makes $2 million and blah, 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 blah. Like, I mean, okay, but we've seen how important he actually is to this team when he got taken out of the lineup. So,
okay, field goal percentage, and this will probably actually, it's funny. So field goal percentage year after year for Doug is basically what you've been telling us. First year at Michigan, 38%. Second year at Michigan, 41%. This year at Kansas State, 38%. So not drastically different than what he was doing at Michigan, and really about the same as it was his freshman year at Michigan. But where the changes are is the 3-point line. First year at Michigan, 36%. Second year at Michigan, 37%. This year at K-State, 26%.
Yeah, it's got to get a lot better. And the other thing that is, we're talking about how well he played with Coleman Hawkins. I mean, Coleman Hawkins is not going to be here next year. So you're going to have to find a way to make that work. Whether I know, obviously we want them to retain a decent chunk of this roster, but they are going to have to land a nice piece or two in the portal. It doesn't have to be, now, don't get me wrong here. It doesn't have to be like a high profile piece. It's just got to be a well scouted, good piece. And I think that's going to be the difference this offseason, between this offseason and the last couple.
And his 2-point percentages have actually improved. 2-point percentage, first year at Michigan, 40%. Second year, 44%. This year at K-State, 45%. So he's actually better from inside the 3-point line.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Coleman Hawkins, he didn't play. He posted on his Instagram story, I believe it was, a shot of an X-ray. People left to wonder, like, is that him saying it's done? I mean, they're not saying that on the TV broadcast. Jerome Tang certainly didn't say that in the post-game press conference, just said he's working really hard to get back, which, I mean, we can certainly corroborate that. That was one of the frustrating things that I saw early on when he got hurt. People saying, oh, he's just speculation that he just packed it in and was didn't want to risk any of his NBA prospects and just packing it in because his team's done. It's quite the opposite. The guy really wants to play, and he is busting his ass to try and play. But there's a legitimate injury going on here, and now we see him posting an X-ray. Where are you at on whether or not we're going to see Coleman Hawkins again this year?
I would doubt we see him during the regular season. I don't know that we can see a quick enough turnaround for him to be available against Cincinnati or Iowa State. Maybe he tries to go on senior night against Iowa State. I don't know. I would say the best case scenario sounds like the Big 12 tournament, but I don't even know how likely that is. And I guess to kind of put the two together, unfortunate injuries down the stretch of Yuka Lee, the same one for a women's basketball team where she's on the shelf again. I think she hurt her other foot. We'll see how that is. Like the way that she looked when she returned doesn't give me, a great feelings about what her, maybe not availability, but her effectiveness will even be when it comes to the Big 12 and NCAA tournament. So, some injuries down the stretch. Sounds like Moby will be back sooner rather than later, though.
Yeah, well, that's good. That helps because they were deep into that bench. Some wild lineups that were out there. And that's just been a part of the whole season, right? I mean, it's just continuity within the lineup. I digress. But yeah, I would not expect Coleman Hawkins this week, which means it's gonna be tough sledding. It's gonna be tough sledding. I hope he'll get a chance to go out and play in the Big 12 tournament. It would be fun to see if they can make, even just a little bit of a run there, win a couple of games. And they obviously their best chance to do that is if he is there. But this week I think is gonna be tough because nothing against the guys that are still there, but they have not shown me that they have the capability to play well enough to win one of these two games at that level without Coleman Hawkins. Going to Cincinnati, who is squarely on the bubble right now. I don't know. I feel like they were in the next 4 out. The last I saw, is that still accurate? So they need this win. Like that's not a win that Cincinnati could afford to let slip away. So they're going to come in motivated. And it's a pretty tough place to play generally. So I expect that to be very tough. And then Iowa State coming in. I mean, it'll be at Bramlage. We'll see what kind of crowd would show up for that game. But Iowa State's going to have revenge on their mind after what happened in Ames. So I don't know if you can tell by the tone of my voice. I'm not very optimistic about what's going to happen this week.
I think 0-2 is probably the most likely outcome for sure.
No further analysis. Just give me 0-2. Yeah, you're supposed to be the yin to the yang. Paint us a little positive picture here.
I mean, no, I don't think you're going to go to Cincinnati and win. And that is a pretty good environment. I was there last year when K-State played there and got beat with basically a buzzer beater 3 from CMOS Lukosius. So this team's good enough to beat Colorado, obviously, even without Coleman Hawkins. But Cincinnati and Iowa State are not Colorado. So,
yeah. And then as far as that relates to the Big 12 tournament, like you're looking at most likely playing then that first day, not getting a bye. So if you had any dreams out there about Coleman Hawkins coming back, this team going on like a Coleman and the Miracles type of run through the Big 12 tournament, or NC State kind of run, I don't know that it's going to happen if you're having to play every single day in the Big 12 tournament. So, well.
Going into the Colorado game, I believe K-State was actually in a scenario where they still had to play on Tuesday, even before that win. I think they were playing UCF. Going into
yeah.
So they were going to play UCF, I think, in the last time slot on Tuesday night. So last game of Tuesday night, which is like basically an 8 or 9 o'clock start. So,
yeah, maybe worst case scenario there. It is what it is. This team has earned everything and earned in kind of a negative sense, earned everything that would be coming toward them with the way that this has gone. So, yeah, well, the good news is you can look good at the Artist formerly known as Sprint Center if you go down to the Big 12 tournament by wearing your home field apparel. You can get it at homefieldapparel.com. 50+ K-State designs, 100+ other teams. Lots to choose from there. It's the best college gear around. You're seeing it all over the place. Are you wearing some home field apparel, or is that just a regular hoodie?
Yeah, pouring one out for Craig Smith.
Wow. Okay, Utah. Yeah, Craig Smith getting fired. Utah's trying to steal the BYU plan. They're trying to go get an alum from the NBA.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do.
What if Josh Eilert never loses? They just won.
No, they're out. The reason they fired Craig Smith is because the guy, they wanted to get rid of him and he started to win too much. And they were like, KU and K-State are screwing up our plan here. Losing to Utah.
And then they went and scored 100 points over the weekend with Eilert.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, we actually had a decent team here, but no, I feel like there's a lot of internal pressure there from BYU in the state. Anyway, you can get all your Utah gear, you can get all your K-State gear. Craig Smith, if you're out there, we've got the hookup for you, buddy. I'm sure.
I doubt he wants to wear Utah gear anymore.
Well, yeah, but get something else. I don't know. You can get some K-State gear on us. Well, sort of 15% off anyway, using promo code 3MOD24. Craig, I'm sure you got plenty of money. It'll be okay, but it's always good to save. 3MOD24.
Yeah, $5 million can go a long way at home field.
Yeah, yes, it can. 3MOD24 for 15% off your first order. We're back in just a moment.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
A little bit more fun here to transition to the NFL Combine, because K-State showed out there, man. Marques, Sigle, Jacob Parrish, and DJ Giddens had phenomenal performances, graded out on a basically elite level across the board in terms of athleticism and speed, which is such a testament to Coach True and the entire training and nutrition staff at K-State. And that's what we want to make our top storyline of the week, which of course is brought to you by our good friends at Alenco. For all the home improvement needs that you have, go to alencohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com. And they will get you taken care of. They are great K-State folks, so support them. All right, DJ Giddens had, if you're going by this relative athletic score that they put out for everybody, DJ Giddens had the 22nd best performance for a running back at the Combine since 1987. So top 25 performance since the 80s at the Combine. That's crazy. Marques Sigle ran the fastest 40 among safeties that were there. Let's see. And Jacob Parrish had the fourth best 40 out of any corner at the Combine. He ran a 4.36. He had the third best vertical jump and the third best broad jump. So, I mean, just across the board, these guys were great. And we love these guys, knew they were good players, but I think it even surprised us just how well they performed here.
Yeah, I figured DJ would run well. 4.43 is better than I thought, I think. I figured Marques Sigle would probably run well. But he was 4.3 as well, right? So
yeah,
I guess, and I knew Jacob Parrish was going to run 4.3. I'm a little my surprise with that was that people were surprised by his 4.3. Jacob Parrish has always been a kind of a track star with track speed, so that one did not shock me. The explosive numbers you mentioned there are good for the verts and the broad jump, but I know we wanted to make this a part of a larger discussion, and I think it's deservedly so. Ever since Coach Kleiman hired Coach True, these are the performances that have become more common when Kansas State sends guys to the NFL Combine. Wasn't it just, I want to say, maybe not last year, maybe the year before, where Julius Brents lit up the NFL Combine in Indianapolis as well, helped him become a second-round draft pick to the Indianapolis Colts. Ben Sinnott last year, I think, had incredible numbers for a tight end as well. Obviously, Deuce Vaughn and Cooper Beebe are in the league. KT Leviston is actually still in the league as well with the Los Angeles Rams. But I guess the thread here, and it goes to probably both Coach Kleiman and Coach True, is that Kansas State is beginning to send more players to the NFL Combine, and in turn the NFL. But when they get to the Combine, they look like the most prepared guys amongst their position groups, and it's becoming consistent to where you draw that line back to Coach True.
Yeah, on Sigle, you mentioned, yes, he did. He ran a 4.37, and according to Next Gen Stats, his speed within the first yards of his run is the third fastest by any prospect over the last 3 years, regardless of position. So the explosiveness early. I mean, there were all sorts of these little nuggets. Where was the other DJ Giddens one that I had? DJ, out of all the running backs that were there, they basically tabulated who the most explosive was, and he was the most explosive out of all the running backs when you tabulated it all up. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through my Twitter timeline and find it, but
and it's a very deep running back class. Yeah,
here you go. So the burst scores. which is short area explosiveness, which is said here by this guy, football guy. I don't know, Zach Cantazambian. It says burst is more important than long speed for running backs, which, I think we can all understand that. DJ Giddens had the top burst score. He's above Quinshon Judkins, Cam Scatteraboo, RJ Harvey, who seems as explosive as anybody I watched last year, Travion Henderson. So that's really, really good news there.
I think it also goes to show that DJ clearly was not healthy towards the end of the season.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we heard some of that, but absolutely true there. Yeah. But speaking of True, Coach True, that when he was brought in, I can remember Kleiman making a point. Maybe you can help me out with this, DY. Was it when Kleiman took over and he said there weren't enough guys running?
That's when they started measuring the miles per hour and the speed. Yeah. It's we got to get to 20 or something like that. We had 4, I think he said we had 3 or 4 guys over 20. And he's like, that's not nearly enough. I think a few years later, they were saying, well, now we got 40 or 50 over 20.
Yeah.
We got a certain amount over 21. We got a handful over 22 miles per hour. So when he brought in Coach True, it was clear that team speed was what they wanted to improve upon or correct, not just having a few guys do this, but team-wide do this. And you're seeing it at the NFL Combine. And this is nothing against him. You guys know I was probably the biggest Marques Sigle cheerleader that there is amongst the Kansas State media, but him running a 4.3 kind of caught me by surprise. And I know some of the people that are a little bit more on the critical side or the skeptical side will be like, well, if we have Marques Sigle and Jacob Parrish doing this at the NFL Combine, what the hell happened to our secondary last year? What I will say is when it comes to a secondary or a defense as a whole, you are only as good as your weakest link. And unfortunately, Sigle and Parrish were not the weakest links, and a few other guys were. And the gap between Sigle and Parrish and another guy was wide. I would say a pretty big gap. I will say the product as a whole didn't have to mean that Marques Sigle and Jacob Parrish weren't good, and we're seeing that now. But it probably meant that they didn't get what they needed out of Keenan Garber. They didn't get what they needed out of Jordan Riley.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess I would say this too. If you go back to, I can remember being at Big 12 Media Days and hearing kind of the word there being hey, we wouldn't trade Marques Sigle for anything. When he first got into the program, they were talking about him being an NFL guy a couple of years ago. And I know sometimes we roll our eyes a bit at okay, Kleiman can be kind of hyperbolic sometimes. That
was Joe Klanderman, I think, to Cole on a 3-mile podcast when he said he wouldn't trade Marques Sigle for any other safety in the country.
And even before that, I think the year before, Kleiman was telling us at Big 12 Media Days that he was an NFL guy. Yep. And sometimes you think, all right, that he was calling in 2021 Will Howard the best backup quarterback in the country, and everybody was kind of yeah, okay.
Some of those things are true. They just take some time to come to
exactly. The point being, just validates some of what they say here, even if it didn't equate to the type of season that everybody necessarily wanted. I mean, this is all good. It's, part of developing the program. Get more guys in the NFL, get more guys regularly to the NFL, have that as something that you can sell. And if you can sell hey, our guys go and torch the combine every time that they're there. If you want to get developed into a dude that's going to play in the league, this is a great place to be. I mean, it's a really nice recruiting tool to be able to hand to people when you have your prospects doing this. And yeah, you want guys to be there having an impact in the NFL. I saw some conversation about, hey, this might move DJ Giddens from a mid-day 3 pick all the way up to he's not going to get out of the first 4 rounds. So, this could have been a performance that moved DJ Giddens up
and Jacob
2.5 rounds.
And Jacob Parrish probably solidified himself as at worst early 3rd round, but he won't get past day 2, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. I mean, look, I'm here for a lot of talk about the Chiefs taking a running back, man. Kansas City Chief DJ Giddens. I'm here for it.
Yeah, or a slot corner like Jacob Parrish maybe. They tend to flock towards local guys if they are worthy. So you got to think maybe Jacob Parrish could be someone along those lines for them. I think we appreciated and knew what we were watching all along with DJ Giddens as a fan base, as a media. I think he got his flowers. I'm not sure Jacob Parrish ever got enough appreciation as a whole for what he did at Kansas State, what kind of player he was. And some of that, unfortunately for him, I think was, well, you're really good, but you're also part of a kind of a bad secondary this year,
Yeah, this year. Yeah, for sure. But that's, I don't know. It seemed obvious to me when you're watching him that he's pretty damn good, and he played really early on in his career. He's another one of those guys that just like immediately came into the program. There was a lot of buzz about it, and he delivered on it very early in his career, and then kept that going, obviously, throughout. So, and Sigle probably would have gotten more flowers had his problem was like dropping a bunch of interceptions. If he would have hung on to more of those, particularly the 2023 season, I think he would have been a little more beloved by just the average casual fan there. But it is what it is. He's going to be fine. He'll make plenty of money in the NFL and be fine.
Josh Hayes still in the league, plays for Buccaneers. So,
well, I mean, that's another thing. Just DBs in general. This staff has done so well.
Russ Yeast is an NFL starter. Yep.
Yeah, with DBs, like, I mean, even you want to go back to the previous regime. I mean, DJ Reed's been a really good corner with the Jets for a while now, and has made it a long time in the league. So there's Julius Brents, transfer DBs for sure, but also just DBs in general. You have one of each here. Marques Sigle transfer, and then Jacob Parrish, who came in out of the high school ranks. So yeah, I would imagine that recruiting defensive backs has to be a lot easier when you have that you can throw out there at everybody.
I'm trying to fast forward a year. We're sitting here March 3rd, 2026. Is there anyone that on this roster that we're going to be talking about in that same light in terms of having an impressive NFL combine? And it's an interesting storyline because then you start to get into some juniors, right? And that junior class was very well decorated. And if they have a great year, will be very well beloved as a memorable class. Obviously, I'm talking about the one with the Avery Johnson and the Dylan Edwards and the Will Ancios, that in-state group that kind of stuck it together for the Wildcats. It'll be interesting to see if a season that they want to have in 2025 allows any of them to go early, or if they all become guys that do come back for a senior year, because I have a hard time like wrestling with that or contemplating that and analyzing that, whether those guys are going to be eligible or not eligible, but I guess perceived well enough to declare early. At this point, I would lean towards no, just because they haven't done it, but obviously the potential is there. But I'm just trying to think out loud, guys that'll probably be competing at the NFL Combine and representing Kansas State this time next year. And I'm not sure anyone's really popping off because it's still a relatively young team, not a ton of seniors, I want to say, too.
Yeah, well, sure seems like people feel like they're talented. I felt a little bit vindicated by that with FanDuel came out with its over-under win totals this week, and K-State was tied with Arizona State and Texas Tech for number one in the Big 12, and that tells me a couple things. I mean, look, FanDuel's got its own model, basically, that they're using, and that's going to rely heavily on talent, because I was surprised. I was like, man, K-State ahead of Iowa State? Like, that's not what I would personally probably project right now.
I think I would. I do think Kansas State's probably, based on what Iowa State just lost to, especially offensive skill position-wise, a little bit of defense.
So much of that is, they have their own models that they're basing this stuff on, and talent plays a large role, which is why, like, you see Texas Tech there, right? Like, why the hell else would you be putting Texas Tech there other than they just had this big...
Yeah, and I have questions for Texas Tech just like you, but mostly because they still haven't figured out the quarterback position, in my opinion.
So to me, it was just validating, like, hey, people feel like the talent level is really high on this team. So I think that is a good thing. Now, I then got called out by someone. I was doing this on my YouTube show and got called out by someone who was like, hey, man, you said this last year, this team's like a year away, and they kept everybody. And now you're sitting here saying, hey, this feels not right, having them at it, which the win total, by the way, for regular season wins was only 8.5. And I was like, well, it's not the 8.5 that seems crazy to me. It's I don't know that I would pick them to be in the Big 12 championship.
I would see, because I thought it all along, and you even said it, like, this built to be a year away, and you went and still kind of went out and did what you were supposed to do for a bunch of first year contributors. I think in year one, save for the Houston game. So I definitely think this. I mean, definitely strong verbiage, but I would project this team to make it to Arlington. I think this is the time that they all come together. You have a second-year starting quarterback. A lot of it will probably come down to which team wins in Ireland. Oddly enough,
well, that's a huge part of why I have a lot of skepticism, because I don't like that at all. I don't like breaking in and new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, and new offensive line, overseas with all the variables that are going to be in play in that game against a team that is
I guess I don't
absolutely had your number in Iowa State, and that's going to be a really tricky. Instead of being a home game later in the year, don't like that. Do not like that.
Yeah, my bold prediction, and it's probably not even that bold, is the winner of that game is probably going to be in Arlington. But no, I sort of don't mind it, because if you go back and look at all these Iowa State teams, they start really, really slow. They do, and Kansas State necessarily doesn't. They might have a clunker in the non-con or something, but they take care of business early in conference play for the most part. Even when they were playing Oklahoma out of the gate, they were winning those games. So Iowa State's traditionally under Matt Campbell has been a slow starter.
Yeah, I feel like that was a little more the case early to mid Matt Campbell, and it hasn't been as much.
They do lose more starters than K-State, so
they lost those receivers. That'll definitely be tough for their offense. It'll look a lot different. Anyway, yeah, a little bit of early season football, early off-season football chatter for you. So we're just in March, but I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Appreciate the work of Nick Springer behind the scenes, as always. Thank you to all of our great sponsors. Get out to Home Field Apparel. If you need home improvements, shout out to our friends at Alinco. And, of course, Holiday Distillery, Ben Holiday Bottle and Bond Bourbon and 360 Vodka. For Derek Young, I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another edition of 3 Ma. We will talk to you very soon.